Okay, so the first example of the Plush Toy formatted assignment I want to go over is making a simple like rubber ducky. Now, granted, whatever approach you take for this, totally up to you. But I want to show you how I go about making something like this. Now, currently, this is split up into multiple bodies, mainly because of being able to split it up for applying appearances. But ideally, these should all be fused into one single body. And we'll go over different ways of approaching that as well. So let's start with our old, let's get a project started. First and foremost, this might get complex for your computer. So if it does, always make sure, or it probably will. So make sure, start by saving. In class, duck. All righty. So let me turn back on my grid snaps or my grid and all this. I just turned it off so you can see what I'm doing a little more clearly. And I prefer to work on this one with visible edges because we are going to be working with a lot of different faces and such. So I want to be able to make those distinctions. So if you want to start with a canvas, great. You can just go at it freeform. Totally up to you. I'm going to start by just going freeform with this and starting with the create form. Click on that tool. It changes the interface to the form construction set. Now, as I said, scale is irrelevant for this project. So if you intend to print this, sure, address that as appropriately. But otherwise, you can make this as large or as small as you want because virtually it doesn't matter. But I'm going to go ahead and think on this at least with relative size. So I'm going to start with the base plane, smack on the middle, and I'm going to open this up to, let's say, 100 millimeters. Now, before you hit OK, because remember, you can't go back and change this after you've created the form, think about how many faces you might need to work with. Like I said before, keep things as simple as you can. So I'm going to start by dialing this back to longitudinal 6. All right. And latitudinal 6. You could always divide faces up later. But if you keep it more simplified, you have less to deal with up front. And since this project focuses on being a really kind of simplified form to begin with, keep that in mind. So, all right, I'm going to start from there. There we go. Symmetry. I can apply symmetry directly. I don't have to apply it after the fact. So I'm going to activate that. And you have your options: none, mirror, or circular. Well, this is a circular form, but I want this just as a left and right side. So I'm going to start from that. You have your 3 options here, your checkboxes. When you apply symmetry with the Symmetry tool, you actually have to select the faces itself. That's the only difference here. So go through them, make sure you got the right one. Length symmetry, nope. That is for going from left to right. I want to go from, well, definitely not width. That is doing some weird stuff. Height, oh, well, that's odd. I'm not being able to apply it. Oh, right, because I have 6 faces. So let's change that back to 8. Oops, wrong one. I always get those mixed up. There we are. So now when I go to width, there we are, smack in the middle. It got confused and so did I. All right. So running it from front to back at the moment. Okay. And just so you can see things a little more clearly, I'm going to shift from the appearance mode to auto assign, which is shift in. All right. So first things first, let's kind of flatten this a little bit. So I'm going to go to my edit form. I'm going to use the soft modification tool, and I'm going to move this around by lines or edges rather. So let's see, what's my distance on this? Weight, about medium. Distance is pretty big, so I'm going to dial that back down to like 20. Maybe that should be a little bit larger, 40. There we are. I can see as I zoom in, my effect range from the red out to white, a little bit more contained. There we are. So I'm just going to first use that to just squish this in a little bit here. I could also, if I really want to flatten this out, click OK. And I could always also just select some faces and just delete them. That is totally an option. You can work with it from there. If you want to do that, that works. And since we're here, I'll go ahead and keep with that. I'm going to go ahead and close that hole first. So go to Modify, Fill Hole, and just select one of the edges. Now you're going to go through your cycle your edges here, different types, center fill or collapse. For what we're going to be doing and for what I'm doing, doesn't really matter. However, I do want to make sure that with these vertices coming together, weld those vertices. You see that changed. What that just meant is that there sometimes can create a overlap void or something like that, an error right in the center we've run into before. You go to finish form, you get like the errors. If you go ahead and check weld center vertices outright, it'll usually fix that issue. However, the other thing I want is maintain creased edges. I actually want that to keep a flat bottom, and that's exactly what that maintain creased edges does. Okay, so there we go. I got a flat bottomed circle that I can start playing with here. All right, so let's go to right, and I'm going to start by making the tail because that just seems right to me. So I'll go to edit form. I'm going to have all of my things selected. Now, remember, what I'm going to do is I'm not just going to select and drag outward. It's a good starting point, and as I orbit out, you can see, there you go. But the issue starts when I go to use my actual extrude function, which is hold Alt or Command on Mac and drag outward. Now I accidentally made it a tail butt. You have to make sure that you are also selecting not just the faces, but also the center lines. And Control Z that. And let's move back to right. Yeah, something like that. Sure, adorable little duck. Just going to drag this outward. Again, I could also have soft modification on. Now it'll drag a little bit more smoothly. Works for me. Now, when I go to actually extrude those faces, I'm going to deselect that. I'm going to use the selection box of all the things from the right. So now it's selected both the face and that edge. Have to make sure to grab both. So now when I press and hold Alt and drag outward, now it's not extruding at all. Well, that's problematic. What's going on here? Soft modify. I always forget. You cannot have soft modify active and extrude. I don't know why. Anyway, so I'm drawing that out, and that just kind of looks like a weird lump. But what I'm going to do is now scale that down, and I'm going to use a multi-direction scale, which is that little dot right in the center. When you mouse over it, you see the 3 arrows, and scale that down. Now I'm kind of going to make that little pointy tail. Do it again. Drag out a little bit more. Scale down. But it's kind of a little pointy, so maybe what I want to do is actually stretch that outward. So grab that edge. I can always go back, double select that whole thing. The next round down, let's stretch that out a bit more. Just trying to make that edge a little bit flatter. That's all. All right, not bad. We'll use the face selection. Stretch outward. I'm just trying to make that kind of like little, well, ducktail. Ooh, sorry. And keep tweaking from there. So again, this is very subjective. You make your little critter however you please. Going to select a few things, going to drag this around, scale it down, just playing around, because the whole thing with this project is it's very much a free sculpting project. So play. But what I'm omitting right now is a head. I'm going to make the head separately and then connect the two. So that looks okay enough. Maybe I'll tweak the front a little bit. Let's drag that over. I can rotate this if I want the front to be a little bit more flat. Now select both sides, drag it out a little more. Always make sure that you do orbit around a little bit. Don't forget when you're working from just one dimension, like from here, or one view, so like the right, it's easy to forget that you have other faces around this 3-dimensional form. And if you don't, you can sometimes end up with like a really weirdly flat form that you'll have to go back and readjust things later. So just going to select a few more of these edges. If I orbit around, you can see what I'm doing. Or rather, if you look from the top, yeah, I'm just stretching the front a little bit. That is all. So yeah, sort of kind of more ducky-like. Good. Okay. Snap back to right. This is a good place to save. Body modeled. Oops. If I could spell, that'd be even better. Okay. So next up, I want to create a head. I'm going to do the same with a sphere tool. Now, again, it asks you where you want to start. I'm going to start on the flat side, on the YZ plane. Select there, and you'll see the difference what that does. Mainly, I'm just going to plop it up here. I can always move it around. Mainly, the difference is orientation. Look at how our first sphere was oriented vertically. So along the x-axis, or sorry, along the z-axis is where the longitude lines connected. Here, longitude lines are actually horizontal. So the points, the center collecting points, are left to right rather than up and down. This makes sense to me because I'm going to use those points to make my eyes. So that means I could basically make a similar tail-like shape on the front here to make the beak. There you go. So it just makes sense to me. Again, it's not like a correct way, just seems about right. And I can always move that around. Like, all right, yeah, sure, 75, whatever. Keep it simple, sure, simplified. Do I want symmetry? Yes. But now look, take that off. I want height symmetry. I want symmetry along the same axis as the body. There we go. Important to keep that. Okay. So from here, you can, of course, move it around as needed. Oh, poop. Let me move that. Press M, select the whole thing. And let's move the head right about more like there. Something like that. Okay. If it was too big, you can always select the same and scale it. You know what? We'll just use format it, and I'll just select all the things and scale it down. Remember, it's by a factor, not by a total. Make sure that I didn't. There you go. Went from one direction. What I actually did was did a non-uniform scale. So now I ended up with something more like an egg. So my Control Z that, and I want to make sure to grab the middle point there. That is my three-dimensional scale. There we go. And let's just bring that down to 0.9. That's all. Okay. Again, just relative. All right, so from here, I want to start making a beak. Now, how am I going to go about that? Doesn't really matter. It's really about what makes sense to you. So I'm going to use the multi-directional, but I'm going to make sure to use the from the right selection box. So I'm grabbing both the face and that center line. Start dragging outward. Okay. Scale that down a little bit. Well, maybe not all in all directions, but if I grab the top, now I can scale it, kind of shrink it down a little bit. There we go. From there, now I'm going to use the extrude function. So press Alt, press and hold Alt or Command on Mac, drag outward. All right, it's turning into more like a hummingbird, but you know what's going on. Or if I, I know. Let's make this a little more jagged faced and turn this into that duck from Nightmare Before Christmas, because this is definitely turning a little unsettling. So to do that, make it a little bit larger, and let's scale that up a little bit. Make that beak a little bit wider. There we go. Keep going. Again, I'm not really going by dimensions or numeric inputs. This is very much what seems about right. Remember, you can also, if need be, you can rotate. So it's not like you're just moving in single directions. Play around with this. Okay. Now, what happens if, say, all right, this face here, what if I don't want quite such a smooth transition? What if I actually wanted that to be a little bit more sharp? That's where tool like, let me say, okay, and tool like crease comes in. That's exactly what that is. Creates a sharp edge between faces. So everything gets highlighted, or a lot does, and you just go in and select edges. So as I select there, and again, I have symmetry active, so I don't have to go work my way all the way around. Now you can see that has a much sharper edge. Now, it did distort things, but I can always come back and rework that. Select OK. All right, now I have a much sharper edge. Go back to edit. Let's double click that line. So now, let's play around with this a little bit. Make that a little bit sharper. There we are. Okay. Just got to tweak that a bit. Again, what if I want to make it a little bit larger, anything like that? Scale it around, rotate. You get the idea. All right. So simple beak as we go. You can add in other elements from here. Most certainly, like, let's say, what if I want to split that into creating a mouth? Well, that's when you have lots of other options, things like you can cut in, you can create more points, you can use the insert edge, we can try that. That's not the edge I want. Say more like about there and there. And it's not going to let me select multiples right there. That would be if I wanted to go around and chop it up in half that away. But I don't want to do that, so we'll not use that. We'll cut it open in a minute after the fact. So, okay. We have that. What if I want to create the eyeball? Let's do that after we bridge the two together. So, like we played with the spoon project, with the utensil project, here, what I want to do is create some edges, just edges, to bridge. What that means is I have to actually delete some faces, because right now these are completely solid forms, or as in they're enclosed, they're complete. I need basically just surfaces. So what that means is I can go in, and again, symmetry is applied, so I can just select one side and just press delete. Opens it up. That now creates, as it reshapes, it now creates, well, a neck hole. I go down here, start chopping some stuff out too. Let's delete that one. That gets close. But one of the things that bridge functions on, you have to have the same amount of faces. And what I mean by that, it's not just this edge. You have an edge and a face here. So 1, 2, 3. So I need 6. Down here, I only have 1 and 2. So what that would mean is I either need to split some things up, or I can keep deleting faces. So let's do that. Delete that one. There we go. Now I have 1 edge, 2 edge, 3 edge. So that makes 6. Oh, yeah, whatever. What kind of chapter? Oh, looking at. But other issue here. Bridge will not function on something so wide a gap. These are very dissimilar shapes. So what I need to do is also come in and do some tweaking here. So for first, I'm going to bring this side over a little bit. So let's use the Form Edit tool here. And let's just drag by point. Bring that vertice over a little bit. Now I'll do the same over here. Drag that over a little bit. So you see where I'm just kind of creating a little bit of clearer area here. Now, trick here is if I go in and select this point for moving this one around, if I zoom way in, you can see there's already some issue happening. So let's see if it'll even let me select that point. There's not even a vertice to grab there because I did some deletion. So that's going to cause some problems, but let's see it. Let's just move forward and see if it'll let me. Select OK. And first thing is what we can do to just check if there's problems. Remember, you can go to finish form and just see what it finds, if it hits any errors. Oh, I'll be. There weren't any errors. That's strange. It wasn't letting me select the point. Now I can. Very odd. All right. So let's go back in, edit form, or into the edit form space. There we are. So let's try bridging from there. See what kind of error codes it kicks back at us. Go to modify, excuse me, and bridge. Select the faces on side 1, which there, there. You do have to select all of them, or you can double click and it'll select everything on that leading edge. Go to side 2. select all around, and it's giving me warnings. Or double click, let's see what happens. It is not going to allow me to work that way. Unable to bridge periodic to non-periodic. What that means is these are just too dissimilar. So let's cancel that. If you get an error like that, like, but I don't really want to like reconfigure anything here. Well, we can try repairing the body. Let's select there and do any repairs. See, it brought those points together. Showing me there. All right. Select OK. Might be able to work from there. Not sure. It might have just made it worse. Control points. Okay, let's try it again. Oops, wrong button. Modify, bridge, double click the neck hole, go down, double click the neck hole. Same problem. All right, that's okay. So what I'm going to do then, if I'm getting the same errors and bridge isn't going to work, another option is just to actually weld the vertices together. So let's go to modify, excuse me, weld vertices. This is a similar function, only you do it manually rather than the program bridging together for you. So now that I've selected that tool, now it highlights all of the immediate vertices. It shows the rest too, but those are irrelevant. So basically what you do is just go connect the dots. Just make sure you have them somewhat close together, which we already did. So select one, select two, snaps there. It's going to do some weird stuff, including immediately switching views to display mode. That's just to help you see what's going on. It did not just automatically make your whole form suddenly very faceted. It's just to help you see what's going on. Keep going. Weld those together. These are mirrored, and now it automatically started smoothing back out. Great. Connecting, and last one. Whoop. There we are. Bit of a wide neck duck, but that's all right. We're not gonna say anything bad about it. If you want, select maintain creased edge. Sometimes with this tool, it doesn't maintain a creased edge because there's really not one, but that's where it is. And this checkbox here was just to give you some options. We're just doing vertex to vertex. So I'll uncheck the maintain creased edge. There we are. Okay. So now albeit significantly thick neck duck. We got that. So let's save again. All right. Well, let's say head welded on. All right. So from here, this is where you start adding more features and such. If you want to split faces, things like that, great. You have symmetry. If you wanted to augment this and turn this into like, asymmetrical, you could disable symmetry by going to symmetry and just go to clear symmetry. But I don't want to do that just yet. So let's give it some eyeballs here. So from here, back to edit form. Now, if you select this using the selection toolbox, remember, it's going to select both sides through and through. That's not a bad thing because either way the symmetry is applied and it'll do it anyway. So basically what I want to do is I just want to bring some eyeballs out. So I'm going to use the Alt tool, bulge out into very unsettling bug eyes, and just start to create that. That's all. And of course, from here, I can scale up or down into, oh my God, and terrifying sunken eyeballs. Because what's happening is I have both sides selected. So it's affecting the space between as well. It's not just the one individual one and the other one mirroring follow suit. It's affecting both, but the space between them. So when I scale them in and out, it's also, as well as enlarging that circle, it's bringing them closer together or further apart. So that's definitely one of the problems of using this tool this way. So let's scale that back down a little bit back into total nightmare area there. Super duper. If I want to isolate some more things, what I can always do is click OK. I can insert an edge, double click there, that edge and into that ring, now I can create, say, like another input there. Select OK. That just gave me more faces. That's all. Again, mirror is applied, so it does it to both sides. Great. Now I could, say, crease the edges again. Modify, crease edge. I don't know why it's not doing that one, but I just want to sharpen the sides around the eyeball. You can see how it modifies as you go. Does some very odd things, but once you select all of them, now it has a much more defined edge there. That's all. Select OK. All right. I'm going to try this. I've run into problems doing this. You can also extrude. Let's see here. I don't know if this will let me even do it because of the selection tools. You can also extrude as a creased edge. Let me use this to select all, and I'm not sure if this is going to work or not because it does some weird things. But when you press Alt, also press Control, and it should do. Nah, it's not doing it at all. Yeah, it's just doing it by Alt. All right, seems to really only work if it's like. All right, I'm gonna hang on first. I gotta back that up because that is just very unsettling. It seems to only work if it is just a surface. So if I were to delete all of these, it would work better. But we'll just leave it as terrifying staring duck for now. You could, of course, rotate any of this stuff as well. So that would be an option. So if I want to go to the front, select all the things on that side, and I could use one of the orbit tools and twist them forward to have just a horrifying duck staring just straight into you. So, again, if you want to avoid absolute nightmares, well, there you go. All right. So I've designated some areas, definitely define those better as edges for the eyes, things like that. I want to play around. I can, let's say, you know what? I want to make, just because I can, I want to add some horns onto it because Tiny Devil Ducky is a entertaining thought to me. All right. So I'm just adding, dividing up the space there. That's all. Let me zoom in. You can see I'm just chopping up a little space, adding in. It reforms a little bit. That's all right. Now, one of the things I found is, well, what I want to do is I could just extrude this and go to edit form again and press Alt, drag that upwards. There you go. But it doesn't really work well because it is based off of a more of rectangular form rather than a circle. So you got a couple of options here. What I could do is I could keep going with that. There is another tool called Cylindrify. Cycle down, and it takes something that's kind of lumpy and turns it more into a cylinder because you're making all this by hand rather than by numeric input, so things can get a little wonky. So select there. Let's try selecting those those faces. So I'll just around the sides. And sometimes it works, sometimes not as well. Again, it seems to work if there's obviously an actual cylinder, that sort. So let's cancel out of that. The other thing I have found, and I just Control Z, is when you delete a face, it automatically rounds things out a little bit. So if I select that face, hit delete, it automatically becomes much more rounded. So if you're trying to actually create something that's a bit more rounded, that seems to be the best option. All right. So now go to select or go to modify or edit form. I want to just select these edges, double click that. Now what I can do is, depending on which way I'm working, now when I go to press Alt and move up, got a little bit more rounded cylinders. And this would just be a place where I could certainly scale these down a bit, things like that, trying to reshape this ever so slightly to make this a bit more rounded. I might just be making it worse and worse. It's always a problem with working with these sort of dimensions. And something to that effect. Sure. Rotate. scale downward. Kind of got more of like less horns, that sort. And I'll do one last one. And scale that down. Now, if I want to close this, it does not work to just scale it down to a point. It just doesn't function that way. That's not what this program's, that's not what these tools do. If I want to close this, I have a couple of options. Let me hit OK. One of which is using the, excuse me, fill hole tool again. There we go. I can uncrease the edges. I do want to weld the vertices together. You have your collapse stuffs, that sort of thing, but it doesn't leave for much of a point. You got a couple of different options, you know, cycle through them. Honestly, the first one was probably best, collapse. Whoops, I lost where I was. I mean, that, to be honest, that's not bad at all. That works pretty well. But if you don't like that, cancel that. The other option would be to weld the vertices together directly. So just like we did before, I always lose where it is, weld vertices. Now, the issue with this is you have two pairs. Kind of gets a little wonky doing this. So select opposing ones. And I just created a nightmare. So let's cancel that. Try welding sides together. Basically, with stuff like this, you just try some things, see if it works. If it doesn't, there you go. And ultimately, what has happened? I ended up with effectively the same thing that I did before. So let me cancel that. And we'll just stick with the fill hole and tweak from there. Double click. I do not want creased edges. There we are. That works. Okay. Resize. Now I have little horns on it. It just entertains me. That's all. All right. So again, this duck certainly needs some tweaking, certainly needs some features added to it. I can add wings, that sort of thing. So let's try that. So let me save. All right. Horns added because reasons. Okay, so from here, let's see. Oh, I was going to create wings. Now, you can do this in multiple methods. In the original, what I did to create these wings is I finished everything in the form, and then I split the body, all that such, but then I was able to draw those faces off with the offset faces. So I did this outside of the form space. So select there and save there. And what I'd like to do here is finish form. It's going to do some stuff, see if it all works. We're good. And it's just toggling the view sometimes as I orbit around. That's all. All right. So from there, what I could do to create the wings and such, I could start a sketch, but I'm going to start it from a construction plane. So I'm selecting from the original and just cycling outwards a bit. The amount doesn't matter at all. I was just going to put in a rounded number because reasons. That is all. Okay. From there, start a sketch on your construction plane. And we'll just make kind of like wing shapes. Doesn't have to be super detailed. Again, this is just playing around for now. You can certainly add details as they come up. Ooh. All right, closed form. That works. If you want, obviously, tweak this around. You want to try to make this a little more wing-like. Expand parts, tweak. Just remember that as you mess with this, you might run into issues. That's all. Issues being that if you put too tight of turns on, sometimes future functions won't work. And that's it. Okay, finish sketch. Now, in order to get a flat sketch onto a rounded surface, we talked about using emboss, but emboss only works on normal rounded surfaces like a cylinder or a sphere. This is significantly more complex. So what I need to do is I'm going to need to project that sketch onto this surface. Now, the problem with that is you can't just do that directly. What I have found is what you have to do is much like copying and pasting a sketch into another sketch. You have to start that sketch or to start that second sketch and have somewhere for the first one to actually go to. It's weird. So to do this, start another sketch, but I need my origin plane or a plane that's parallel to this one. So I'm going to hide the bodies, E, and select that original plane. There we are. Unhide the body. Next step is I go to create, and what I want is to use the project tool. But remember, I'm not using the direct project, which is taking the outline of a shape and bringing it to a sketch plane. I'm doing the opposite. I'm taking a sketch onto a plane and projecting it onto a body. So that is, or rather, project to surface. There we are. Select there. I select the faces I want to apply this to. Now, this is important. Go to the full side. You have to make sure to select, because this is all divided up into faces, you have to select all of the faces that overlaps. Otherwise, it'll be an incomplete sketch. Second, select the curve you're projecting, which is my little wing. Now it did that, but it did it kind of wonky because the projection type, it always defaults to the closest point. I've yet to come across a time I actually want to use that. I want to go to along vector. Now it's going to ask me what my vector is. Okay, it's along that plane, along that route, or rather perpendicular to those planes. That's exactly what I want. But that's not all. See, there's nothing there yet. It won't let me finish. I have to select the plane I'm working on or projecting toward. I can't get to it. So again, hide the bodies, select that plane. Now you see what's happening there. See, it's projecting parallel to that plane, but it's using the surface to complete that curvature. Really neat. So when I unhide the body, it is projected completely curved to that surface. Okay. Now, what I can do is I can finish that sketch. What I want to do here now is not split body, go to modify and split face. So just like I was doing here, it's basically like adding in edges, that sort of just splitting the faces. So faces to split, again, selecting all of those, selecting the splitting tool, not this line, because that would do weird stuff. And I mean, it effectively would do the same thing. So if you want to skip, I guess that would kind of works, but I don't want to use that one. I want to use the actual line because it's a projected line. It honestly, it does do the same thing, but it's just, if you have a more complex edge, they can be slightly different. So that's the issue. Now, split type is split with surface. That's what we're going to use, but you can see along vector does the same, it does similar things. Closest point, again, we're avoiding those. Keep with that. This selection box allows you to stretch or extend the splitting tool. So it just goes a lot further. Uncheck that and it keeps it more localized. That only has to do with, say, if you had more going on, like if this maybe had like actually unfurled wings or I don't know, tiny duck minions, whatever, next to it. So that's what I want. And because it extends through the body, it does both sides. So I didn't have to like duplicate any of this work onto that side. Select OK. Now I have those faces. Oh, poof. It didn't do it on both sides. All right, well, tell you what then. Let's go back to edit feature. It only affected that side because I selected that side. I forget that sometimes. So go back to select faces to split. Let's make sure that that also splits that side. Okay. Now it did it both sides. Great. Let's hide those sketches to save myself the trouble. Now from here, technically you would think I could just use extrude. Extrude doesn't work on this type of tool, or this tool doesn't, extrude tool doesn't work on this kind of surface rather. The tool that works is under modify. This is the offset face. The picture doesn't really make sense for what we're doing. That's okay. So select that. I'm going to select those. Now you do have to do this one at a time because it's not at the same. You can keep going, but you see the problem is it's wanting to do the same on both sides. Oh, I forget. Nope, that does work. When I was doing this last night, it didn't work. So no idea. Now, if you stretch this out a whole bunch, you can see one of the issues is it projects off in all directions relative to that surface. So it's not just a straight piece. But for what we're doing, I'm just making a small projection, or sorry, an offset. That's okay. So let's shrink that down to like 3. I just want a little bump out so it looks like the wings. Okay. So now I have my effectively curved extrusions to make the wings. So let's say there. Faces for wings. All right. And this would be a part where you can, of course, smooth things out and such. So I could use a fillet. I want to round out both of those sides. And let's say 1. What's it going to run into? What is my error? The size. All right, well, let's change the size then. Strange. Not run into it doing it that way. Tell you what then, let's cancel that and let's just do one side at a time. Maybe that'll help. Nope, same problem. All right, so where it's running into is right there. Short points do weird things. So even though this is quite rounded, that for some reason isn't working. And I don't know why. Oh, I see it now. Always check your errors. What happened is it's giving me an error right there. But when I zoom in, look what's not selected. That one little broken line for whatever reason. So let's make sure to also select that line. No idea why. Let's try that. Oh, okay. Well, poop. Still doing the same thing. Chamfer cannot be created, or the fillet chamfer cannot be created because of the requested size. The ends, selected edges. Try adjusting the size and using multiple separate operations. Fine. Let's see what we can do. All right. So what that's telling me is effectively it just can't be done that way. Too close. So let's try a couple of things. Let's edit feature. Let's see what happens when we stretch that extrusion out a little bit more. Or sorry, that offset feature a little bit more. Sometimes adding a little more dimension will allow us to do what we want. Very strange that it's not grabbing all of it. All right, let's try that. Still giving us the same error. Okay, so it has nothing to do with the length of the offset. It's the sketch itself. So go back into the original sketch and edit sketch. So what's probably going to happen there is because of all this line work, let's try just moving some of this point around. Let's try to there. And with this one, let's open that up a little bit more. Just playing with the handlebars, that's all. All right, finish sketch. And that recalculated everything. Now let's try to fill it. Still, for some reason, it's dividing that up, and I don't know why. All right. Now let's see what it does. Hooray! So it just widened I just widened the curvature, that's all. Gave me a little bit more room to work with. Okay, great. So now let's play around with, can I make that 2? Yes, I can. All right. So that is rounding out the base of the wing. Let's go around and make sure to select that as well, this side, because I don't want to have to make multiple features on here. Dang. Don't know why, for some reason, sometimes it won't let you keep selecting things. So make sure to select all of those and go to the other side and do the same. Make sure to zoom in that one because I have that weird little spot. There we are. Now, edges, 2 millimeter fillet. It's thinking. There we are. Okay, so rounded those over. Great. Now let's also soften that outer edge. I'm going to add a function to this fillet, so I don't have to make multiple fillets. Add one more. I want to select the outer edge. Probably the same problem. There we are. Make sure to select all the things. Make sure I'm grabbing the actual outer edge there. You can probably just select the whole face. That would probably work better. There we are. And we'll just do like a 1 millimeter. Now let's see if those play well together. Okay. Wouldn't let me do that. Because, all right, let's just go ahead and cut that. It's probably too big. Or they overlap. The fillets probably overlap. So I'm just going to cut that away. And we'll just keep that one for now. Let it calculate. Sorry, taking a moment. All right, got that fillet. Let's add another one. Let's do by the face this time. And I'll select both sides, grabbing both wings. And that 1 millimeter fillet was probably too large. So let's do half a millimeter. There we go. I was just trying to round out that corner. That's all. See? All right. Select OK. Now, one of the problems we're working with here is, remember, this is all outside of the form space. I can always go back and make edits to the base, but I can't go back and add more to that. Very problematic. There we go. Now my little devil duck has little adorable wings. So from here, I can add features like adding appearances and such to the eyes and all that such. So let's change over, or rather first let's select and wing fillets. All right. So I'm going to switch back over to appearances. So shift in, all metally. Open up appearances. And let's select some stuff. So paint, we'll stick with glossy. We'll stick with yellow for now. So right now, let's go over the whole thing. There we are. All right, so everything's yellow now. Great. But I want to split some stuff up. So if I want to add color to just some areas, you can switch from body by your selection or application filter from bodies and components to faces. So select there. Now I can select individual faces. So let's go back down and let's give it red. So I can select by face. And of course, if you go by this, you're going to have to do every single one. So let's not do that. So do a right selection box, all of those faces. This might be a problem. There we go. Don't know why it did that. Great. So now it's just by faces. And do the same for the eyes. Let's go by that. Great. Terrifying, just solid black. Why not? And let's give it some nice little, let's make the ears, horns, whatever. Let's make the horns white. So select all of them. Nope. There we go. Come on. Ugh, don't want to do this all individually. Don't know why it's selecting faces like by that. No. For some reason, it's not letting me select just the individuals there. Okay, well, tell you what then. That's a good spot to figure out how to split this all up. All right, so if you run into trouble like this, and honestly, I could go in and select all of these individually, or again, that's what I was trying to do, is use a selection tool, but for some reason, it wasn't selecting all of them, and I don't know why. There we are. That should work right there. Dang, don't know why it's doing that. For some reason, I'm sure y'all are seeing this blue line appear around when I'm doing a selection box, but for some reason, it is not selecting everything properly. Well, there we go. Ah. There we go. Don't know why it was doing that. That was weird. And it didn't select the tip either. Oop. No. Don't know what is going on there. There. All right, so you get the idea there. Strange hornbill. All right. So let's save there. Appearances added. All right. So if you want to keep going with this, sure. You can, of course, add in, like, you could say, let's give it an actual mouth. So from there, start from a sketch, side plane, and I want to add like an actual, like, kind of creepy point. So I'm going to do like I did for the first sketch to, excuse me, for the wings, just draw a profile. So select enter. Excuse me, geez. I do want to move that point further back, so I can drag that back there. Yeah, that works. Okay. I do not have to close this sketch because that's not what I'm going to do. So I can just finish sketch here. Forgot I got the sketches hidden. And now what I'm going to do is I am going to use split body, because right now, as I expand the bodies, there's only body 2, duck. But what I want to do is chop away what is shown by the sketch. And as I orbit around, you can see it's just right there on that plane. So if I select split body or under modify split body, I just have it already tabbed on there. The body to split the whole thing. And splitting tool is that sketch. So you can see, and let me uncheck the extend tool so it keeps a little more localized there. So you're seeing that it is making that wedge right in the middle there. Select OK. Now there's 2 bodies, and I don't know why it always kicks out the other one. So let's just say mouth and rename. I don't know why it doesn't keep the original one as the original. It's very strange. So now when I hide that little wedge, now I have an opening for the mouth. So that's how you can pretty easily do that kind of thing. Bring the appearance back up, and by faces, tell you what, ooh, I know. Let's go to metallic flake and add metallic flake to the inside faces. All right, what's going on here, buddy? There you go. Oh, I don't have them downloaded. Ugh, fine. If you see that come up or something's not happening, these little arrows to the side, you can select those arrows and it'll actually download the feature. They're just not in there yet. Don't know why. All right, they're all downloaded. Ooh, maybe green. There we go. For no reason in particular. Selecting the faces. There you go. All right. Now, for whatever reason, my horned duck has a cosmic metal flake inside of the mouth. Now, one last thing I wanted to show you on this is what I had on this example is I made this little round over here. What that is a pipe tool, but how I created it is not with a sketch, but with the edge of a body. What I mean by that is it's literally, if I hide, or I don't have to hide, I can select these edges and I can use that as my rail for a pipe. So we go to create pipe. I just went past it. There we are. And my path, I can select that edge right there. And you see, it's going to create a, let me just make it oversized so you can see more clearly. it's going to create a pipe tool all the way around. Now, right now, it's assuming I want to cut. I can join that and give it that little rather unsettling feature there. I can make that a new body and then color that and apply it separately, whatever. But that's a really convenient way, and I'm just going to make that a little bit smaller and less creepy as could be. It's a really convenient way of adding ridges and things like that to an existing set of faces. So that's just the edges of your faces, and I can use that line to create that. Pretty neat. So I'm going to go ahead and go back to join, and there we are. We'll use join. It's one and the same. Whoop. Now has little edges there. I can do the same thing like the edge of this, the horns. Pipe tool. I have to go around and select multiples. Nope. With that one, it's not actually letting that one. Dang, it's not letting me do it because these sections are so weirdly done. Let's see if I can deselect the chain and it will do it. No. All right. Well, sometimes it won't let you do it for whatever reason. Yeah. Well, poop. I was hoping that would let me do that, and that would look really neat. But the other way to do that is what I could do is actually split these bodies off, and with the same set of the same split body tools, and then I could just still use the edge. So I'll just ignore that for now and still apply the coloring to that side. But there you go. So mildly unsettling, terrifying duck that is also somewhat squishy and adorable, with a little duck tail, cosmic mouth, and horns. So I'll save there. Cosmic duck. And tell you what, just because I want that, that's all right. So there we go. So that is a set of ways to create some features for something that can be fun. And again, very much free form. Now, as far as printability, yeah, this might be problematic because of like the large overhang of the beak, things like that, but you get the idea. No one way to make any of this. It's much more about that it has enough features to be complex enough, and you're applying appearances and such. If you have questions, of course, we can certainly discuss it, but good way of making stuff. So we will stop that one where it is. If you're making a duck or something similar, good luck with it. Have fun with it.